The Mistletoe Curse. The heart of Evergreen Hollow was a twisted amalgamation of festivity and horror. Centuries-old traditions mingled with the scent of pine, but a peculiar mistletoe held a sinister secret that would make even the bravest of souls cower in fear. The Mistletoe Curse whispered among the town's cobblestone pathways, bringing a chill to the very bones of those who dared to listen. For generations, this seemingly innocuous plant harbored a malevolent force, waiting for unsuspecting victims to get ensnared beneath its boughs. The Thompson family, newcomers to Evergreen Hollow, arrived on the cusp of the Yuletide season, blissfully unaware of the town's hidden menace. Drawn by the nostalgic allure of a small town's holiday charm, they settled into their quaint cottage, oblivious to the horrors lurking just beyond their doorstep. As the winter days shortened and the air grew heavy with anticipation, the townsfolk adorned their streets and homes with vibrant decorations. Yet amidst the shimmering lights and cheerful carols, the mischievous mistletoe hung in unsuspecting doorways like a noose waiting to snap shut around its prey. Its festive guise concealed a ghastly fate for those unlucky enough to find themselves trapped beneath its deadly embrace. The Thompsons felt their spirits lifted by the festivity that permeated Evergreen Hollow. They spent their days exploring the town's shops and restaurants, marveling at the decorations and indulging in sweet holiday treats. But as the nights grew longer, a sense of unease began to take hold. The mistletoe haunted their dreams, its white berries dripping with blood and its leaves wilting like the dead. One evening, while walking home from dinner, they found themselves lost in the maze of winding streets. The mist was thick, and a soul-chilling cold settled into their bones. It was then that they stumbled upon an old abandoned mansion, looming ominously in the darkness. They felt drawn towards it, as if some force was pulling them closer. As they approached the front door, they noticed a small sprig of mistletoe hanging from the doorknob. Without thinking, Mr. Thompson reached out to remove it, but his hand froze in midair. A voice, soft and alluring, whispered in his ear, "Leave it be, dear sir. It's better to stay on the safe side." The Thompsons turned around, but no one was there. They exchanged a glance of confusion before hesitantly pushing open the mansion's front door. The inside of the mansion was dark and devoid of any holiday cheer. The air was still, and the silence was deafening. The only sound was the creaking of wooden floorboards beneath their feet. They explored the first floor, finding nothing out of the ordinary. But as they climbed the grand staircase towards the second floor, the temperature dropped drastically. Their breaths came out in visible puffs as they huddled together for warmth. They reached the top of the stairs and found a long hallway with several doors. As they approached one of the doors, they heard a faint whispering coming from inside. They slowly pushed open the door to reveal a room filled with mistletoe. The sweet, earthy scent of the plant filled their noses, but there was something off about it. The leaves were drooping, and the berries were black and oozing a strange liquid. Suddenly, they heard the same soft voice from before. "Welcome to my home. I see you found my collection." A figure emerged from the shadows, its face obscured by a hooded cloak. "I am the keeper of mistletoe, and it seems that you have stumbled upon my sanctuary." The Thompsons tried to back away, but their feet seemed rooted to the spot. The hooded figure approached them, its eyes glinting in the darkness. "You see, mistletoe is a powerful plant. It has the ability to draw out desires from within us, whether they be good or bad." Mr. Thompson felt a sudden surge of desire overwhelm him. He wanted to touch the mistletoe, to taste its bitter sap, to feel its leaves against his skin. He reached out his hand towards the plant, but the hooded figure stopped him. The figure said. "You mustn't touch it just yet. First, you must make a choice." "A choice?" Mrs. Thompson asked, feeling a sense of unease. "Yes," the hooded figure said. "You must choose between temptation and restraint. Will you give in to your desires or resist them?" The Thompsons looked at each other, unsure of what to do. Mr. Thompson's desire for the mistletoe was still pulsing through him, but he didn't want to give in so easily. Mrs. Thompson, on the other hand, felt a sense of fear and wanted nothing to do with the plant. I choose restraint," Mr. Thompson finally said, his hand still hovering inches away from the mistletoe. "Very well," the hooded figure said, nodding. "Restraint it is." The figure then lifted its hood, revealing a face that was both beautiful and terrifying. Its eyes were a bright emerald green, and its lips were painted a deep red. The Thompsons couldn't help but stare in awe and fear. "Good choice," the figure said with a smile. "Restraint is a virtue that is often underappreciated." The figure then gestured towards the mistletoe. "You may touch it now, but be warned, once you do, you will be forever bound to its power." Mr. Thompson hesitated for a moment, but the desire was too strong. He reached out his hand and touched the mistletoe. As soon as he did, he felt a rush of energy surge through him. He closed his eyes and breathed deeply, savoring the feeling. Mrs. Thompson watched in horror as her husband's face contorted with pleasure. Suddenly, Mr. Thompson let out a loud moan and collapsed onto the ground, writhing in ecstasy. Mrs. Thompson knelt beside him, trying to shake him awake, but he was unresponsive. The hooded figure stood by, watching the scene unfold with a smirk on its face. "He was warned," the figure said nonchalantly. "He made his choice." Mrs. Thompson felt a mix of emotions: anger, fear, and sadness. She couldn't believe what had happened to her husband. She looked up at the figure, now feeling a sense of hatred towards it. "What have you done to him?" she screamed, her voice echoing through the clearing. The figure chuckled. "I haven't done anything. Your husband simply gave in to his desires. He chose the mistletoe over restraint." Mrs. Thompson stood up, fists clenched. "I demand you fix this." The figure sighed. "I'm afraid that's not possible. Once the mistletoe has taken hold, there's no going back." Mrs. Thompson felt her heart break as the truth of her husband's fate hit her like a ton of bricks. She was engulfed in a state of both grief and joy, knowing he would never be free from this endless cycle of pleasure and pain. She sank to the ground, sobbing uncontrollably, broken by her own mistakes. Yet at the same time, a warmth spread through her body as she noticed the mistletoe, a reminder that her husband had chosen his own destiny, regardless of what it cost him or his family.